Hello everyone, this is Jason for Primetime Aquatics, and in this video we are going to talk about potentially one of the most annoying things that can happen to your fish tank, and that is when there's duckweed in the water. So in today's video we are going to talk about what is duckweed, how did it get in your tank, why it might not be so bad for your fish tank, and if you still don't like it after that, yes, we are going to talk about how to get rid of it. Hope you enjoy the video and I appreciate you being here. So duckweed, Limna minor, that is one of the primary species of duckweed that winds up in your aquarium. This is a very tiny little plant. It usually winds up in your fish tank, perhaps because you bought some live plants and it kind of hitched a ride there, or maybe you got some fish from a tank that had some duckweed and it just takes one little piece of duckweed and the next thing you know, you've got a lot in your fish tank. So often it's just going to hitch a ride from some other plant or fish that winds up in your tank. So where does duckweed come from? Usually it hitches a ride when you buy some live plants or maybe some fish. There might have been a little duckweed in that tank and all it takes is just one little leaf of duckweed and the next thing you know, the whole tank is just covered in the stuff over the next week or two, and that can be pretty scary for some fish keepers. But don't worry, we're going to talk about how to deal with that. Now, it can cause some problems. And so for one, when duckweed is covering the entire top of the tank, it can reduce water flow and surface agitation at the top of that tank. That can prevent fish from getting the oxygen that they need and getting the CO2 released from the tank itself. The other issue that may not be the best is once the duckweed is covering the entire tank, it will block some of the light from your fish tank lights, and it can also give the water kind of a green sort of feel just because the duckweed is green in color and that is the light that winds up shining through. The other issue, and perhaps I think the one that is most annoying, is the fact that when you try to feed your fish and your entire top of the tank is covered in duckweed, that can be hard to get the fish food into the water where the fish need it in order to eat. The other issue you can have with duckweed is it will pull nutrients out of the water column. So if you have other types of plants in your tank that really require the nutrients in the water column, things like hornwort or guppy grass, it is going to compete with those types of plants for the nutrients. One of the things I have also found though is the duckweed will compete with black beard algae. So that can be a potential benefit because it's competing for those same nutrients. Finally, you may have some problems with duckweed getting into your filter intakes and clogging up your filter a little bit and reducing its flow. And I guess let's not forget one of the most annoying things, and that is every time you go into the tank, when there's duckweed there, it's going to get all over your nets, it's going to get on your hands, on your arms when you're doing tank maintenance, and so that can be pretty annoying. Now, as annoying as duckweed can be sometimes, it does provide an ecological benefit to your tank. One, it removes nitrates. One of the reasons why we do water changes is to control the nitrate concentrations in your tank. And so it's going to help remove that and potentially lessen the amount of times that you have to do water changes or the volume for your fish tank. We've already mentioned this as a potential downside, but it does reduce the amount of light getting into your tank. That can actually be good for some of your fish if they don't like a really bright tank. Having that duckweed can dim it down a little bit, chill out the light just a little bit, and make it a little bit easier on your fish. The other cool thing is duckweed can be fish food, and that's actually one of the ways that you can get rid of duckweed is by introducing certain fish into your tank. So for us, when you look around our fish room, we've got a lot of tanks with duckweed, and in fact, we really don't make much of an effort to control the spread of the duckweed throughout our tanks. It's almost impossible at this point with almost 80 tanks. But you'll notice that some of our fish tanks have zero duckweed. It's not because we take special care in avoiding duckweed in those tanks, it's just because the fish in those tanks eat it. So one of the ways to get rid of duckweed is to introduce fish into the tank that will eat it. So for instance, most Malawi African cichlids will eat duckweed. That's why in our Mbuna tanks we have no duckweed whatsoever. In most of our peacock tanks there is no duckweed because they're eating it. Now, not all African cichlids will eat it. You will see in our Lake Tanganyika tanks there's plenty of duckweed there, so the shell dwellers don't touch it, the rock dwellers don't touch it, our Cyprichromis will not eat it. So if you've got African cichlids from Lake Malawi, that's a great way to control it. But it's not just the African cichlids that will control it. Some South and Central American cichlids will also eat duckweed. Our severums love duckweed as a snack, and in fact what we'll do is we'll pull duckweed out of a tank and put it in other tanks. It serves as a fish food. And so we've got our severums, our rainbow cichlids really like to eat it. We have, when we had our tinfoil barbs and our ballast sharks, they really loved duckweed. Back when we had our silver dollars, they would eat it as well. So you can find fish that will eat duckweed. Goldfish would be another example. Some people feed duckweed to turtles. So there are fish out there that will eat the duckweed. Another fish that loves to eat our duckweed are the electric blue acara in our 125. In fact, we will put it in that tank and they will eat it as well. In our bottom 125, the tilapia eats it, our Oscar eats it. So there are lots of fish out there that will take care of that duckweed problem for you. Second thing, if you want to try to control it, the easiest way is just to take a net and scoop it out. You may not get it all. And if you don't get every last piece of it, you're not going to get rid of it. Because even if you just leave a few pieces of duckweed in your aquarium, that will be enough to repopulate the surface of the tank, usually within a couple weeks. But we generally just scoop it out with a net to control the amount of duckweed that's going into our tanks every week. The other thing that you can consider is upping your water changes. The less food there is for the duckweed to consume, in this case the nitrates, the less likelihood that the duckweed's going to be able to grow and cover the entire surface of the tank. At least it won't be able to do that very quickly. Another option for controlling duckweed is if you have a lot of surface movement, so you've got a pretty strong hang-on back filter, or maybe you've got a power head near the top of the tank, as long as that flow is appropriate for your fish, that's going to cut down on the duckweed a little bit. It prefers to have more stagnant water, more still water. So when you've got those hang-on back filters cranking pretty good, we've got a small power head across the surface of the tank, or even when you have sponge filters at a higher rate of flow, that's going to cut down a little bit on the amount of duckweed that you get at the surface. So the bottom line is this: when it comes to duckweed, I know it can be annoying. If you can put fish in your tank that will eat it, they will get rid of it fairly quickly. If you can't, just make it part of your weekly maintenance routine to scoop it out with a net. If you got every last piece out, then yes, you will have a duckweed-free tank. Short of that, it's really a maintenance issue. You just want to remove enough of the duckweed so that you can feed your fish and they can still get access to the food at the surface. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.